Today, we're going to talk about interviewing skills. And let's be honest, getting to the interview, okay, cutting through what could be a pile of resumes or cluttered inbox in and of itself takes a bit of work. But imagine getting to the interview and being judged by anything other than the skills required for the job. Today, I'm going to introduce Chris Delaney into this conversation. Chris is an interview coach, a hypnotherapist, and the author of What is Your Interview Identity? Chris, welcome to the Quilling Solution.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me here. Very excited. I'm loving your energy already, so it's going to be a good show.
Oh, yeah, it should be a good show. It's a topic near and dear to my heart. I love figuring out how to help people be more successful, go further, go faster. And as someone I've known said, his father used to say, experience is the best teacher, but wisdom is learning from somebody else's experience. So
Nice. I love that actually, because get the expertise of people who spend hundreds of thousands of hours like practicing, researching, rehearsing, and then use what they've learned. Quick learning.
Exactly. So before we jump into the meat, tell us something that you can share about yourself that even those closest to you may not know about Chris.
Well, I come across as some like confident guy. I teach charisma, I teach people to overcome fears, phobias, and anxieties. But like everyone else in the world, we always have a little bit of anxiety with new situations. So even though people look very confident, look charismatic, all of us suffer from a little bit of imposter syndrome, anxieties, and fears.
Yeah, and it's funny when you coach it, people don't expect that you'll have it, right? People expect that you'll be 100% bulletproof and confident in everything you do. So that's awesome.
That's definitely
awesome.
right. I know some actors and comedians as well, especially comedians. You think they just could go on stage and they're funny and they interact with the audience. You think that
Yes.
person is just so confident. But when you meet them after stage, they're like, oh, I didn't think that joke went round, or I was dead nervous before it. We all have the same fears and anxieties.
Over the years, I don't know about you, I've taken the Myers-Briggs a number of times, and I've gone from like a heavy I in TJ, right? And all my numbers being, really at the borders of all those things to coming in closer, but I actually moved from like an I7 to an E2, okay? So from introvert to extrovert. And I always attribute it to the jobs and spending more time with people and leadership and things like that. But still in my natural state, I believe I'm an introvert. For those that have known me and have seen me speak and do something, oh no, you can't be an introvert. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm totally uncomfortable getting on stage and doing all the speaking and whatnot. I've just learned how to do certain things and embrace certain habits in order to better prepare me for it. I think that's really key for folks to understand that, any diagnostic tests and things that you take help identify you at your natural state and where you're coming from. It doesn't mean that's where you have to rest and you can go outside of those comfort zones.
I totally agree with that, especially like Myers-Briggs. I think you're a little bit different in different situations as well. So you might be, I don't know, more extrovert at work and more introvert at home, or vice versa. And all these little different personality types, or like you said, they're always on a scale as well, aren't they? And going back to like the anxiety thing as well, like the
Yes.
anxiety, the flip to that is excitement and energy, isn't it? So the flip to introvert is extrovert, the flip to anxiety is excitement and energy. So you can move that scale of anxiety up to energy. That's all it is. It's just something inside you
Exactly.
that you can push in the right direction.
So now let's go into this work a little bit. The whole idea of being more successful in interviews and to some, I don't know about you and what's happening in the UK, but over in the US right now, there's a struggle to find talent, right? In a lot of different places, particularly what I see is in the retail environments, fast food environments and such. There's signs posted, we'll take your app by text even, and we'll do the interview by Zoom, so on and so forth, right? But that still means there's going to be a litany of applicants. I know I posted a job for something we want to do here at the Coiling Solution, 2 different jobs. I mean, Chris, within 3 or 4 days, well over 100 applicants. And the skill set ran the gamut in terms of what people brought to the table. So talk to me about, I guess, first of all, let's go to the research. What even got you to pursue the research of this?
COVID.
Is
So
that right?
COVID come, we was in a lockdown, and I'm a career advisor. That's like my sort of main job role, and I specialize in interview techniques. But I was like, COVID came, lockdown. But I'll do a little bit more research just to help my clients. So I started reading all these academic research papers on the job interview process, but they're all designed for the employer to help the employer predict the job performance of each applicant to offer the best applicant the job role. And I thought, oh, we need to flip this to make it more suitable for the job applicant. So
Mm.
from all this research I found, I started creating the interview prediction grid where you can measure your likelihood of getting a job outcome based on your perceived level of knowledge and experience versus your level of confidence in the job interview situation, which helped me create 16 interview identities, which I later then turned into a book. But lockdown made me do the research. I got inspired by the research to help the job applicant, and that in turn helped me to create the interview prediction grid model.
I noticed it's still kind of fresh. How many folks, how do you think about, leading folks through this model? And so far, how many folks have you taken through it? And what would you say the kind of from and to looks like? Where they started, maybe, what interview success was looking like versus after they've gone through this with you, what that looks like.
It's really funny because the way you perceive yourself in life and in the job interview is different to how other people perceive you. So I work with
Yes.
like hundreds of thousands of people all the time, and some people that I meet like come across to me like dead confident. I think, oh, they're quite charismatic and only going to do well in the job interview. And then when I start chatting to them, like, oh, this imposter syndrome comes out. They've got
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
anxieties. They don't think they're that good for it. So a lot of this stuff is in people's mind. But the flip side, especially with the interview identity, is the employer's perception of that person as well. So it doesn't matter if you think you're confident, or you come across as confident or not, or if you come across as highly skilled or highly knowledgeable in your job sector. In the interview, it's how the employer perceives you. You
Yes.
might be the best person in your workplace. You might be highly skilled, highly competent. Everyone goes to you for advice and support. You're leading all the projects. You're the boss without being a boss in the organization. But in the job interview, if you don't communicate your competencies confidently, the employer don't know that. They don't know
Yeah.
you're the expert. They don't know you're the go-to person. All they know is what you talk about. So the identity is really to get people to think about it from the employer's perspective. How does the employer, the interviewer, see them for that 45-minute recruitment process?
Yeah. Now this interview grid and such you talked about in the 16 interview types. To what level do people need to understand the interview type in order to improve their success?
No, not really, because it's like with Myers-Briggs, which gets you to recognize your personality type. You do that, and you can see sort of like your strengths and your areas of development. And it's the same with this interview grid. Really, you don't have to know if you're self-assured or charismatic or unprofessional. It's about you just identifying what your strengths are in the interview, and then what you can do to keep developing those skills. Because, like I said, it doesn't matter how good you are in the job role; it's how good you are in the interview that helps you get that next rung on the ladder. And what you need to think about really is how you can come across more confident, because confidence creates likability, it improves rapport,
Mm-hmm.
that gets the employees to want to listen to you a little bit more, and how you frame or how you structure your interview answers. So many skilled and experienced people just don't give enough information, just give like generic statements, talk about the team rather than what they've done in that particular role. And a lot of people self disclose weaknesses rather than being a self promoter. So this is really to get you to reflect on yourself. So you go, I do that well, but that's the area that really need to improve on.
So one of the things you talked about, I want to go back to real quick is, and you've said this a few times, so it sounds like one of the meaty takeaways is this ability to demonstrate a level of confidence. And what have you seen work best in terms of helping people shift and do more of that?
So confidence is key. So James, like you come across as a very confident person to me. Because you're confident, like your tonality is very relaxed. You talk in a like a slow, nice pace voice. You nod along. Your eye contact strong as well. Your facial expressions change, and sometimes you start a little bit loud and go quiet. That's because you're confident in yourself. Your
Mm,
communication changes, and whatever you're talking about will change your tonality in your words. That's what really helps in a job interview as well, because people like to listen to that sort of tonality. I'm a
mm.
hypnotherapist. When I want to send someone to sleep, I talk in a monotone voice, very slow, very slowly, and that drives people to sleep. You don't want that to happen
Yes.
in a job interview. But to help people become more confident, I do use some hypnotherapy techniques. So
Mm.
I'll try something live on air with you, James, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you got anything? You don't have to tell us what it is, but have you got anything that you're kind of scared of, or anything that makes you anxious or a phobia, or anything like that?
Extreme heights.
Extreme heights. Okay. So I want you to imagine yourself being at an extreme height. So can you do that for me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone else listening to this, just think of anything that makes you scared. So a job interview, extreme heights, public speaking, spiders, or whatever it is. whatever you see, you feel. So when you imagine yourself in front of a spider or at extreme heights or in a job interview, you'll feel that emotion, either excitement or anxiety. So what do you feel
Mm-hmm.
when you picture yourself at extreme heights?
I just felt a little flutter in my stomach.
A little and on a scale
I
of 1 to 10, with 10 being that's like fear, phobia, you hate that feeling, 1 being you calm and confident. Where are you on that scale?
7.
A 7, okay. So I want you to get that far, and I want you to imagine pushing it outside your head. So everyone listening to this,
Yeah.
get that whatever you're scared of, imagine it in your mind and push it outside your head so you can see the edges of that far of that picture. And can you do
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for most people, it'll be a movie because we're more scared of things that are seen in real life. So you'll see the spider running, or you'll imagine the wind if you're at a great height or whatever. So I want you to pause that film so it becomes a stilled photograph.
Hmm.
And then next, drain the color out of it. Let all the color just drain away. So it becomes a black and white stilled photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've ever been to like an old art gallery, James. Do you remember those big old art frames, the wooden ones or the iron ones? I want you to put your stilled black and white picture of that height into a big old frame.
Hmm.
And we're not finished yet, but just now on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst and 1 being, you're calm and confident. How do you feel now?
I would say a 5 because I don't feel any fluttering.
It's already gone down 2. So I want you to imagine I can step through the screen and take your black and white photograph. I'm going to pull it further and further away. So going further and further away, smaller and smaller. So it's the size of a postcard, all the way down. So it's the size of a stamp, further and further away, all the way. So it's the dot on the horizon. And how do you feel now?
1.
And if I push it towards you and it got bigger, brighter, and more colourful, how would you feel?
I just got to a 6.
Yeah, and then all the way down again. So it's the dot on the horizon, and then just let that dot disappear. How do you
It's
feel
like a
now?
1. Yeah, it's gone.
So I
yeah.
use this technique with like phobia clients, but I kind of do it a bit more in depth. But just imagine you're going to speak on stage, you got a job interview, you got to do a presentation or anything, going for a date or something. You're a little bit fluttery. You picture that thing in your mind, push it out, drain the color, make it into a photograph, and just push it further and further away. You can do that in 3 to 4 seconds while waiting to be invited into the job interview.
That is interesting. Wow, you know what's interesting about that to me, Chris, is it's almost like you have these, I would say these 3 circles, right? The circle of influence, the circle of control, the circle of concern. To overcome the circle of concern, you try to increase the circle of control, and which you have more control over, obviously, and then the circle of influence through relationships and such. What just happened there was almost a shift of what was in the circle of concern over to the circle of control with this zoom in, zoom out thing. And in other words, right, giving me control of the significance in my perspective, right? That's pretty cool exercise.
Yeah, because in most situations, your emotions control you. So you see something, the stimulus, the spider, the heights, the public speaking event, and then you feel that feeling like straight away, and that controls you. What you're doing is taking back logical, analytical control to control your emotions. Our kind of chimp brain, as they call it in the chimp paradox book, is on all the time, and it's very powerful. And what you sometimes need to do is quieten that down and let your analytical, your new brain, your cortex at the front of your brain, your mind to take control.
That's good. Kind of moving from the amygdala, the flight reaction to control. That's excellent. There's another one I would give too, assuming that nervousness could be a debilitator in that meeting too, right? And if you're nervous, your voice can flutter, right? You could begin to sweat. And, again, when I was earlier in my leadership, one of the things I worried about was the public speaking, even in front of a group that I may be leading, 100 people, right? And I went to Toastmasters, and one of the best things I learned as Toastmasters was that many public speakers have this problem with too much energy before they walk on stage. And again, remember, your nervous system can be your best friend, right? Because it's the same system that's going to protect you from so many things. But, it doesn't look well to be on stage sweating, right? At least at the start. I mean, you may get there as you're presenting with so much energy and whatnot, but you don't want to walk on stage already sweating. And so what a gentleman taught me was that many speakers will sit on a chair quietly right before they go on stage and just press their heels down into the floor. And by pressing their heels and activating your quads, it pulls that energy down to the lower part of your body and releases it, right? So you just get to pull all this energy out of your system and just slow your breathing calming down and so on and so forth, and you'll walk on the stage much calmer. Same thing is true for an interview. You're sitting outside of the office waiting to go on, or it's 4 or 5 minutes before the Zoom. Sit, press down, let yourself feel your body releasing that energy and coming back into a calmer state.
Yeah, so you have the fight and flight, which we all know about. So you get into these anxious situations, fight and flight. You kind of want to get out there,
Yeah.
and your mind then changes your body. So you stop digesting food. Your blood goes to like the extremities of your body. Your short-term memory kind of disappears. You kind of focusing on the here and now. But when you do stuff to release that energy, like putting your feet down, or rhythmic breathing, or even the picture exercise, your heartbeat beats more normal, so it's not erratic anymore. You start digesting your food, so your body works the way it should work, and your mind is then relaxed. Your mind actually, when it's stressed, shrinks as well. So when it's not stressed, it's just in its normal size, and it just allows you to think in the moment without having all this additional pressure that really we put on ourselves. Because in a job interview, you're talking about you. You're the expert about you. No one knows you better than you. So this should be the perfect 45 minutes for you to be chatting about yourself.
Yes, that's excellent. Excellent. So then the second thing you mentioned was the answers, providing better answers. I assume moving away from yes and no answers to answers with a bit more substance. But let's talk about that a little bit more.
So the research says the high scoring answers are longer, more descriptive answers. So the more words per answer often results in more job offers. People who use varied language, emotive words, who also change their tonality, also see an increase in job offers. Data descriptive answers are more likely to score high because in the structured job interview, which is what 90% of employers use, the referencing your answer against the job criteria on the interview scorecard. So the more data you can use, they can compare that to their situation, their current team, and also the other applicants that are being interviewed all day. So if you're saying I've done A, B, and C, and it resulted in 200% increase in this, that, and the other, and then someone else says something, but they've only had a 10% increase, it's a massive comparison to make you seem even stronger as a candidate. So long descriptive answers, use varied language, use emotive words, but also give data and specific information. That data and specific information is so important for a structured job interview.
Data and specific information. So I'm hearing more length, use of emotive words, but data and specific information, which collectively sounds like tell stories.
Yeah. So stories are so like, the two things you kind of need to do is have a structure to your interview answers. So your structure can be dead simple, like an opening, a middle, and an end. So I'll tell you what I'll tell you what I'm going to talk about it, and then summarize that point. Or describe a situation, the actions you took, and then the outcome. Have a couple of structures in your head, because a structure gives you confidence, because you'll have a start, a beginning, and the end.
Absolutely.
And it creates a more detailed answer anyway. So you kind of want a structure, but in that structure, ideally, you've got to give lots of storytelling. Behavioral job interviews, which is interviews based on past experiences. So, tell me a time you did this, rather than what would you do in this situation. They want you to tell stories, because they're asking, tell me about a time you did this particular task. So they want that storytelling. And storytelling is so powerful because it talks to our amygdala brain, it talks to our chimp brain, it talks to our emotions. When people are telling stories, we visualize it and then we feel it. A little bit like that, standing on the top of the cliff and moving a picture, you felt different emotions in your body. And that wasn't even proper storytelling. So storytelling elicits emotions. And if it's like, a negative scene, like they do in films, you always start a film off with like this big problem that's going to happen. That should be the same in a job interview. Tell us about this horrible event that happened in the past, and then tell us how you, the hero, saved the day, and tell us about the positive outcome. So the employee goes from this like negative emotion, like this intrigue, what's going to happen, goes through the hero's journey, and then they have this like amazing positive outcome. So they feel all those emotions in your story. It's very powerful.
Absolutely. I'll just say, as an interviewing manager, what I'm looking to hear is that you will solve my problem. I'm looking for evidence that you will solve my problem.
That's it. Like the structured job interview from an employee's perspective is to predict the job performance of each applicant.
Absolutely.
So I can see that you're the best person for this role, you'll fit into the team, the company culture, you've got similar values, and you've got these skills and experience that you can bring to the team. If you get to the interview stage, they like you already, because like you said, they've had 200, 300, 400 applications. Like Google get like 20,000 applications. So if you're getting an interview, they like you. They don't just interview everyone, because it takes so much time. All you've got to be now is better than the other 5 or 6 people that are being interviewed on that same day.
So let me ask this last question because I think this is a real touchy one. I think it's one that could be a lightning rod issue for people. One of the things you talk about in your book is overcoming conscious bias. I'd ask you to do two things. Talk a little bit about your research and what you find shows up during interviews, and then what people can do to, again, overcome it.
So unconscious bias is the opinion the employer has of an applicant as soon as they meet that person. So they walk downstairs to get you from reception, and as soon as they meet you, they'll make an opinion based on your body size, your weight, how you dress, your body, your posture language, your ethnicity, your gender, your perceived age, all these different things. Lots of different data is subconsciously filtered through their experience, values, and beliefs. So they then create this opinion. And in an interview at the beginning, it's kind of like ability. I like that person, or for some
Yes.
reason I don't like that. A good reaction with that person. It can also start though prior to the job interview. So imagine this situation: there's an internal vacancy, and a hiring manager, is getting a glass of water, and the applicant's manager comes on and goes, "Oh, I see that you're interviewing James today. I'm very surprised. I don't really think he's that suitable for the role."
Hmm.
That opinion has an effect on the hiring manager. So it has a
Yes.
horns effect, a negative opinion. So when they meet you, they've already got like a bias based on that other person's opinion of you. Or the opposite is, imagine, I'm recruiting for someone to work for my organization. I go on their social media feed, and they've got stories on there about industry related models and theories. They comment on groups related to the sector that I'm in, and they're always giving opinions and sharing. I'm thinking, God, this person's a bit of an expert. I don't know if they're
Right.
an expert because they're just sharing other people's stories and giving a thumbs up on social media. But
Right.
perception creates an opinion about people, so that becomes the halo effect. I think this person is going to be
Yes.
really good. Not all
Yes.
unconscious bias is negative either. Like affinity bias, me having something in common with you, James, will create likability. So we're both kind of in the self-help arena, aren't we? We're both done Toastmasters. We both do public speaking. So we always look for things that we have in common with other people. And if we find it, we kind of like them a little bit more. Being attractive as well is not important, but has an effect. So there's
Yeah.
some research on what is beautiful is good bias. So the people we find attractive, we think they're going to make better employees. We think they're going to be more intelligent, more likable,
Mm.
more friendly, and a more suitable fit for the team and the company culture, just based on that perceived attractiveness of that particular applicant. So, how do you handle unconscious bias when it's negative? So, this happened
Yes.
to me, James. I remember going for an interview once, and I worked in the self-help industry for years, doing like careers
Hmm.
advice and that sort of stuff. And generally speaking, in the UK, a lot of females are in that industry. There's loads of males, but it is mainly females.
Predominantly. Yeah.
And my name's Chris, in it. So Chris is for Christopher. Oh, it's also for Christine as well. And I
Yes.
remember sitting in reception, and this female employee comes downstairs, and she's reading me Miss CV, and she looks up and she goes, "Oh, I thought you were gonna be a woman." And she had this like shock
Mm.
on her face, and I
Mm.
knew potentially that could be like a negative thing. She had this
Right.
unconscious bias about me. So straight away, I reframed that opinion. I said, "Oh, it's dead interesting that, because a lot of people sometimes think I'm feminine because I got a lot of feminine traits that are really good for this particular role. I got empathy, I got great communication skills, I got great listening skills, and as you can
Mm.
see from my resume, I got loads of experience in helping people to be successful in their careers." So I reframed her
Yes.
initial opinion straight away.
Yeah. That's good. And I mean, a lot of things happen in an interaction. Your confidence played a role, right, in helping you like reply quickly with some wit and truism and lean right into the things they're going to be looking for in that role. That takes a lot to do in that moment. And so all these things really work together.
Yeah, you can predict some of this stuff as well. When I first got into this industry, my first training job was training warehouse staff to drive forklift trucks. And when I got that role, I was young, but I also looked really. I was immature as well. I was young, looked young. I was
Yeah.
immature. Um, and generally speaking, I used to train 40-year-old, like, big guys in like these big warehouses. Used to like carry these heavy weights all over
Yes.
the place. So, and I used to walk into the training room. You could see them all look at me going, that is not the trainer, is it? So you can predict people's opinions about you, can't you? So if you're
Yes.
applying for, a new energetic digital company where they're trying to recruit young people, but you're an older person, they're going to have an unconscious bias about that. So you need to be able to say something that reframes that situation. And
Absolutely.
reframing is that easy. It's just giving data but in a different perspective. Imagine going to the supermarket and you want to get a yogurt. You go to the supermarket, there's two brands of yogurts. one says this yogurt is 20% fat, and the other brand says this yogurt is 80% fat free. The same data, the same information,
That's
just
right.
presented in a new light.
That's right. That's so good. That's so good. Chris, I want to recap some of the points we talked about so folks can, if they haven't been taking notes, you can summarize them here. So the first thing Chris really dove into was this idea of confidence, right? And confidence helping the interviewer feel better about you sooner. So displaying that confidence. So one of the things, think about the exercise he did with me briefly, folks, the taking control of the perspective, right? And doing that quickly. He walked me through it in that was probably a minute, maybe 90 seconds. But the idea is that you can do that in a matter of seconds. And then to the example I gave you around releasing that nervous energy, right, to help you control your breathing and work against that amygdala reaction that happens sometimes. The second thing Chris dove into was providing better answers. And we summarized that with tell stories. The more length in the answer, the better. Use emotive words, use data and information where you can connect it to the problem that employer is trying to solve, right? And I would just add to that what he just talked about, reframe, right? So even in the conversation when you're given an answer or you're not asked to give an answer, as they're saying things to you, reframe it to provide a strong answer in the form of a story. And then this third piece of overcoming conscious bias and understanding that can happen in the positive and negative, but that you want to assume control and have the presentation that you want. One, he talked about some things that can happen even before you get to the interviews, which is some of the things you do online. Please don't believe that you have an online you and an offline you. There's only one you. I always say it. Unless you have a cape and a phone booth, okay, and you're Superman, you don't get to have two yous, okay? There's one you. So know that these interviewers are also looking you up if they're doing their due diligence before they even have the conversation to get a perspective of who you are in life. And then two, being open, being reflective in communication, being confident is going to help with that bias. And thirdly, being attractive. And you may say, well, I'm born the way I'm born. Yes, but you can still be clean, present yourself a certain way, groom a certain way, and be intentional. That's the word I would use more than anything. Be intentional about your physical presentation when you show up. Chris, anything that I missed in that recap?
I didn't realize we talked so much, actually. That's great. It's a great recap.
Hey, well, listen, thank you for the work you're doing. I'm sure it's helping many folks, particularly during this time. And thank you for joining me here on The Correlink Solution.
Thanks, James. It's been a really fun chat.
Thank you. You are informed, empowered, and can now be accountable. What were some of your takeaways from this episode? I always enjoy hearing from you, so please share. Additionally, if you have questions, here's some things that are new to you, or need some clarity on some of those things, I am here to serve. Go to our website at thecorelinkSolution.com/podcast. Right below the show notes, you'll see a comment section. Tell me about some of your takeaways from the episode. You can ask your questions, you can mention challenges in the areas that we cover, or tell me about guests you'd love to hear from. Alternatively, you can do the same through social media channels of Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Thank you as always for linking up, and I look forward to seeing you next episode.